At the family portrait session, my parents told my 6-year-old daughter to wait in the car because she'd ruin the perfect family picture. My brother's kids were all lined up on the risers, their Sunday clothes perfectly pressed, hair smoothed back with gel. Emma stood beside me in her blue dress, the one with the white flowers she'd picked out herself at Target 3 weeks earlier. My mother gestured toward the parking lot with one hand, not even looking at us. Just a dismissive wave, like she was shooing away a stray cat. My brother's wife was already positioning their children, adjusting collars, smoothing down a cowlick on the youngest. I started to gather my purse, Emma's hand in mine. Then the photographer looked at the reservation sheet clipped to her portfolio and said, "The booking shows this session was paid for by." My mother went pale. The color drained from her face in about 2 seconds, maybe less. Her mouth opened slightly. She looked at me. I smiled. The photography studio smelled like fresh paint and vanilla candles. They'd just renovated, knocked out a wall to create the main shooting area. Track lighting hung from exposed beams, all very modern, very expensive. The backdrop my mother had selected was cream-colored linen, the premium option according to the price sheet I'd seen on the website. $85 extra just for the fabric. My father stood near the window, checking his phone. My brother adjusted his tie, that same Brooks Brothers pattern he wore to every family event. His wife smoothed her skirt for the 3rd time in as many minutes. Outside, through the plate glass windows, I could see Emma's reflection. She wasn't crying. She'd just gone very still, the way she did when something confused her. That stillness broke something in my chest, but I kept my face calm. Neutral. I'd learned that expression over years of family dinners, holiday gatherings, birthday parties where my accomplishments were mentioned briefly if at all. Then the conversation would shift back to my brother's promotion, his new car, his children's achievements in private school. Let me tell you how we got here. My parents had a pattern. It started when I was 16 and my brother was 19. He'd gotten into Cornell. I'd gotten into UCLA, full scholarship, but that detail somehow never made it into the family narrative. At Thanksgiving that year, my aunt asked about college plans. My mother spent 12 minutes talking about Cornell's architecture, the networking opportunities, how proud she was. When my aunt turned to me, my mother said, "Oh, Jessica got into a California school. We'll see how that works out." The dismissal was so casual, so practiced, that I almost didn't register it. Almost. That pattern repeated for 23 years. June 2019. I graduated from business school with my MBA. My brother had never gone back for graduate education, but my parents threw him a promotion party that same month when he made senior associate at his firm. 100 people attended. They had it catered, rented tables and chairs, set up a slideshow of his professional achievements. I brought my diploma to Sunday dinner the week after my graduation. My mother glanced at it and said, "That's nice, honey. Can you help me with the dishes?" My father was in the living room with my brother, discussing investment strategies. I heard him say, "You've got a real head for this, son." Natural instinct. I stood at the sink, hot water running over my hands, MBA diploma propped against the backsplash, and something hardened in me. Not anger exactly. Something colder, more patient. August 2020. I bought my first rental property. Nothing extravagant, a 2-bedroom condo in Pasadena listed at $340,000. I'd saved $75,000 for the down payment, working overtime for 3 years, taking every bonus, declining vacations. At Sunday dinner, my mother mentioned that my brother was looking at investment properties. "He's so smart with money," she said, passing the roast. "Takes after your father." I'd closed on my property 6 days earlier. I said nothing. My brother talked about neighborhoods, mortgage rates, property management companies. I ate my potatoes. Let him talk. My mother beamed at him across the table. My father nodded along, occasionally interjecting with advice. They never asked what I was doing with my income. They assumed, I think, that I was living paycheck to paycheck, maybe saving for a nicer apartment. The condo in Pasadena would generate $2,400 in monthly rent. I'd already signed a lease with tenants moving in September 1st. November 2021. Thanksgiving dinner. 18 people around the table, extended family, my mother's sisters, my father's brother, and his wife. My brother announced he'd been made junior partner. He was 34. My mother actually teared up. My father shook his hand, then hugged him. Real backslapping, pride-filled embrace. My aunt raised her wine glass. Everyone toasted. It was a good achievement, genuinely impressive, and I was happy for him in the abstract way you're happy for anyone doing well. But then my mother looked down the table at me and said, "Jessica, you're 32 now. Are you still doing that administrative thing?" That administrative thing was a director of operations position at a tech startup. I was making $140,000 base plus equity. I'd negotiated the equity package myself, spent 2 weeks going back and forth with the CEO until I got the percentage I wanted. I smiled at my mother and said, "Still doing that, yeah." My cousin asked about my brother's partnership track. The conversation moved on. Under the table, I calculated the current value of my rental property portfolio. I'd bought 2 more units that year. Current combined value, approximately $980,000. Equity after mortgages, roughly $210,000. I took another bite of turkey. March 2022. Sunday brunch. My mother was talking about my brother's daughter making honor roll. She was 9 years old, bright kid, genuinely doing well in school. She gets it from her father, my mother said. The whole family is just so intellectually gifted. My brother's wife smiled, modest, but pleased. My father agreed. Good genes, he said. Our side of the family has always been sharp. I defended my thesis proposal the day before, working toward a professional certification in financial analysis that would position me for VP-level roles. The program was brutal. 2 years of weekend classes, case studies, comprehensive exams. I was 3 months from completion. My mother turned to me. "Jessica, are you seeing anyone? You know, your brother was married by 30. I was 33. I said, "Not currently, no." My mother sighed. "Well, we can't all be as put together as some people." She meant my brother. She always meant my brother. I finished my coffee. Calculated the tax implications of converting my third property to an LLC. The numbers worked better than I'd expected. July 2023. My brother bought a house. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, in a neighborhood my parents had always called where successful people live. The house cost $1,100,000. My parents helped with the down payment, $150,000 as an early inheritance advance, they said. At the housewarming party, my mother gave a speech. She talked about watching my brother grow up, always knowing he'd achieve great things, how proud she was to see him in a house like this, providing for his family this way. She got emotional. My father put his arm around her. 60 people clapped. I stood near the kitchen island, holding a glass of wine I wasn't drinking, and did the math. I owned 5 properties now. Combined value, $1,840,000. Combined equity, $520,000. Monthly rental income, $9,200. I'd also been promoted to senior director. Base salary, $165,000. Annual bonus potential, 30%. I took a small sip of wine. My mother caught my eye across the room and walked over. "Isn't this incredible?" she said, gesturing at my brother's house. "I mean, to accomplish this much at his age." I agreed it was a beautiful house. She patted my arm. "Don't worry, honey. You'll find your way eventually. Not everyone is cut out for this level of success, and that's okay." I smiled at her. "You're probably right." She smiled back, satisfied, and returned to the party. I didn't know it yet, but my father had already scheduled a meeting with the family lawyer, planning to formalize the business succession that would cost them everything. I'd been building something they couldn't see. Started in 2018, right after I realized the family narrative wasn't going to change on its own. I worked with a financial advisor named Patricia Chin, found her through a professional women's network. First meeting was September 14, 2018, in her office in downtown Los Angeles. She looked at my assets, my income, my savings rate, and said, "You're leaving money on the table." "Lots of it." Over the next 6 months, she helped me restructure everything. We set up an LLC for property management, created a holding structure that separated my personal finances from my investments, opened accounts at 3 different institutions to maximize growth and minimize risk. By March 2019, the framework was in place. By June 2019, when I got my MBA, I had the education and the infrastructure to scale. I bought properties systematically. Every 9 to 12 months, another unit. I ran the numbers obsessively, calculating cap rates, cash-on-cash returns, appreciation projections. I toured properties on weekday mornings before work, scheduled inspections during lunch breaks, reviewed purchase agreements at night after family dinners where no one asked what I'd been doing. The secrecy wasn't planned initially. It just happened. My parents didn't ask, so I didn't tell. Then it became strategic. Every time they dismissed something I'd done, every time they compared me unfavorably to my brother, I added another line item to my spreadsheet. Another property to view. Another projection to run. Close call, December 2020. My mother came to my apartment unannounced. I was working on a purchase agreement for my 3rd property, documents spread across the dining table. She knocked. I shoved everything into a folder, threw it in my bedroom, returned to let her in. She'd brought cookies, wanted to talk about Christmas plans. She glanced at the table. Working on something? She asked. I told her it was paperwork from work, compliance documentation, boring stuff. She lost interest immediately. We talked about Christmas for 20 minutes. She left. I pulled the documents back out, hand shaking slightly. That was too close. After that, I worked from a private office I rented monthly at a co-working space. $45 a month for a secure room with a locking door. Worth every penny. Close call, May 2021. My brother asked what I was doing for investment income. We were at my parents' house, Sunday dinner, just the family. He'd started talking about diversification strategies. My father was engaged, asking questions. My brother turned to me. You must have some savings by now, Jess. What are you doing with it? Index funds. I had $180,000 in equity and $45,000 in liquid savings at that point. I told him I had a modest retirement account, nothing special, was thinking about maybe looking into some basic index funds like he suggested. He nodded. Good idea. Start small, see how it goes. I can send you some resources if you want. I thanked him. Said that would be helpful. He sent me 3 articles about beginner investing. I read them politely, sent a thank you text, then returned to analyzing a fourplex in Glendale that would cash flow $3,800 monthly. Close call, October 2022. My father asked about my tax situation. Completely out of nowhere, over breakfast after I'd stayed the night in my old room during a weekend visit. Your taxes must be pretty straightforward, he said. W-2 income, standard deduction, nothing complicated. I had an S-corp by then, depreciation schedules across 5 properties, a CPA who specialized in real estate taxation. My return the previous year had been 47 pages. I told my father, yeah, pretty straightforward, used TurboTax most years. He seemed satisfied with that answer. Went back to his newspaper. I went back to my coffee. I didn't know that same week, my father was meeting with a family lawyer about formalizing his estate plan in a way that would reflect what he called demonstrated financial responsibility and family contribution. The lawyer was taking notes about my brother's stability, his marriage, his children, his partnership at the firm. My name wasn't mentioned in that meeting. I wouldn't learn about this until much later. By March 2024, I had 7 properties. Combined value, $2,450,000. Combined equity, $740,000. Monthly rental income after all expenses, $11,300. My day job salary had increased to $185,000 plus equity that had vested to a value of approximately $90,000. I'd completed my financial certification. I'd been approached by 2 companies for VP-level roles. I was in negotiations with one of them, a fintech startup offering $240,000 base plus significant equity and the title Vice President of Strategic Operations. I was 34 years old. I was, by any objective measure, doing extremely well. My parents thought I was struggling along in some vague administrative role, probably renting a SOSO apartment, maybe dating occasionally, but nothing serious. The gap between their perception and reality had become so wide it was almost funny. Almost. April 2024. My father called. Asked me to come to Sunday dinner, said he had an announcement. His tone was formal, strange. I said I'd be there. Hung up. Felt something shift. This was different. I called Patricia Chin. Something's happening, I told her. I think it might be estate-related. She asked if I had copies of all my documentation organized and accessible. I did. Everything was in a fireproof safe in my apartment and backed up digitally in encrypted cloud storage. She said, whatever happens, you're prepared. You've built something real. Nobody can take that from you. I thanked her. Sat in my car for 10 minutes after the call, just breathing. Then I drove to the property in Pasadena, the first one I'd bought. Walked through it. The tenants kept it immaculate. Hardwood floors gleamed. Kitchen counters clear. I stood in the living room and remembered signing the purchase agreement 4 years earlier, how my hand had shaken, how certain I'd been that I was doing something important even if no one else knew about it. I locked up. Drove home. Waited. That Sunday dinner was April 21st, 2024. I arrived at my parents' house at 6:15 in the evening, exactly on time. My brother's car was already in the driveway, that new Mercedes he'd bought in February. I parked behind it. The house smelled like my mother's pot roast, the recipe she'd used for 30 years. Everyone was in the dining room already. My brother, his wife, their 3 kids. My parents. The table was set for 9. I sat in my usual spot, the chair at the far end, the one where you couldn't quite see the TV in the adjacent room. My mother brought out the roast. My father poured wine. We made small talk for the first 20 minutes. My brother's youngest had lost a tooth. My mother had joined a book club. My father's golf game was improving. Normal family dinner conversation. Then my father cleared his throat. I've asked you all here because I want to discuss something important, he said. Your mother and I have been working with our attorney on estate planning. We want to be transparent about our intentions. He looked at my brother. We've decided that the family business holdings should pass to someone who has demonstrated both financial acumen and family commitment. Someone who represents the values we've tried to instill. The family business was a small property management company my father had started in the 1980s. 3 commercial buildings in Long Beach, a few residential units. Current value, according to the last mention I'd heard, was around $800,000. My father continued. We're transferring the business to your brother. He'll take over operations immediately, and upon our passing, full ownership will transfer to him. My brother looked surprised, but pleased. His wife touched his hand. My mother was smiling. My father said, we know this is a big responsibility, but we're confident you're the right choice. You've always been so steady, so successful. We're very proud. My brother said thank you. Said he was honored. Said he'd manage it well. My father raised his glass. Everyone toasted except me. I was doing calculations. The business generated approximately $65,000 annually in profit after expenses. With proper management, it could be worth over $1 million in 10 years. I took a sip of water. My mother looked at me. Jessica, honey, we hope you understand. This is a business decision. It needs someone who really knows what they're doing. I smiled. Said I understood completely. My father looked relieved. We'll still help you out when we can, of course, he said. We know things have been harder for you. I nodded. Thanked them for their concern. We finished dinner. My brother and my father went to the study to discuss transition plans. My mother and my sister-in-law cleared dishes. I helped. Carried plates to the kitchen. Loaded the dishwasher. My mother talked about how wonderful it was that my brother would carry on the family legacy. I made agreeable sounds. We had coffee. I left at 9:30. I sat in my car in their driveway for 4 minutes. Then I drove home. Called Patricia Chin even though it was late. Told her what happened. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Are you ready?" I said yes. She said, Then let's show them what you've actually built. I had 48 hours to decide. Once I revealed the truth, there was no going back. The family dynamic would shatter completely. They'd know I'd been operating at a level far beyond their assumptions for years. They'd know I'd let them believe I was struggling while I built a portfolio that dwarfed the family business they'd just handed to my brother. They'd know every dismissive comment, every comparison, every casual cruelty had been witnessed and filed away by someone who was, objectively, more financially successful than the son they'd spent decades elevating. But there was something else happening in 2 weeks. Something my mother had planned. Something that would give me the perfect opportunity. The family portrait session. My mother had scheduled it months ago, March sometime. She'd mentioned it at Sunday dinner back then, said she wanted a professional family portrait for their 40th anniversary. She'd booked Reynolds Photography, the expensive place in Santa Monica, the one that charged $850 for the session plus prints. She'd sent an email to all of us with the date and time, May 5th, 2024, 2 p.m. Dress code, business casual, earth tones preferred. The email had gone to my brother's family and my parents. I was CC'd, almost like an afterthought. I'd replied confirming attendance. I didn't tell them I'd be bringing Emma. May 5th, 2024. I picked Emma up from school at noon. She was excited, chattering about the portrait, asking if she could wear her blue dress. I said yes. We went home, got ready. She chose white sandals to go with the dress. I wore a navy blazer and cream-colored slacks, professional but approachable. We arrived at Reynolds Photography at 1:55 p.m. My parents' car was there. My brother's Mercedes. I parked. Held Emma's hand walking in. The studio was everything I'd expected. Expensive. Tasteful. Track lighting. Exposed brick. The photographer was a woman in her 40s, confident, professional. Her assistant was setting up reflectors. My mother saw us walk in. Her smile faltered slightly when she saw Emma, then recovered. "Oh," she said. "You brought Emma." I said yes, I had. My brother's 3 kids were already positioned on the risers, arranged by height. My mother turned to the photographer. "We're doing a multi-generational portrait," she explained. "Grandparents, adult children, grandchildren." The photographer nodded, making notes. My mother gestured to my brother's children. "These are our grandchildren." Emma stood beside me, still holding my hand. The photographer looked at Emma. "And this one?" she asked. My mother hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. Then she smiled, that tight smile she used when she was managing appearances. "That's my daughter's child," she said. "But for this portrait, we're focusing on the immediate family unit. You know how it is, we want to keep it cohesive." The photographer looked confused. "But isn't she immediate family?" My mother's voice got firmer. "We've planned this specific composition. Just the 4 adults and the 3 children." She looked at me. "Jessica, honey, maybe Emma could wait in the car? We'll take you 2 separately after, if there's time." My brother was adjusting his tie, not looking at me. His wife was smoothing their daughter's hair. My father stood near the window, hands in his pockets, also not looking. Emma's hand tightened in mine. She didn't say anything, just went very still. The photographer said, "Ma'am, I should mention that excluding children from family portraits can create some challenging dynamics." My mother cut her off. "It's fine. We know what we want." She turned to me, gestured toward the door. "Jessica, please." I looked at my daughter. At her blue dress with the white flowers. At her white sandals. At her face, confused and trying not to show it. I looked at my brother's children, already positioned perfectly on the risers. I looked at my mother, waiting for me to comply the way I always had. To swallow the slight. To accept the dismissal. To understand my place. I gathered my purse. Put my hand on Emma's shoulder. Started toward the door. Then the photographer looked down at her reservation sheet. The one clipped to her portfolio. She frowned slightly. "Actually," she said, "I need to clarify something. The booking shows this session was paid for by..." She checked the name. "Jessica Morrison." My mother went pale. The color drained from her face in less than 2 seconds. Started at her cheeks, spread to her forehead. Her mouth opened slightly. She looked at the photographer. No, she said. That's not we paid for this. I booked this. The photographer turned the clipboard around. The credit card on file is under Jessica Morrison. Charged March 18th. $850 for the session, $340 for the premium backdrop and extended time. She looked at me. Is that you? I smiled. Yes, I said. That's me. My mother's voice came out strange. Higher than usual. Jessica, what are you talking about? I booked this. I sent the emails. I shifted my purse to my other shoulder. You sent emails with the date and time, I said. But you never actually paid for it. I called Reynolds in late March after you sent that first message. They said no one had put down a deposit. So I booked it. Paid in full. The room got very quiet. My father spoke for the first time. Jessica, that doesn't make sense. Why would you? He stopped. Something was changing in his expression. Starting to understand, but not quite there yet. My brother was staring at me. You paid $850 for this? I nodded. Plus another $340 for upgrades. And I pre-ordered 3 print packages. The deluxe ones with the leather albums. Those were $520 each. I got one for Mom and Dad, one for my brother, and one for me. I paused. Total cost was $2,410. I put it on my Amex. Got the points. My mother tried to recover. Well, that's very generous, honey, but we can reimburse you. We'll write you a check. And we still want the portrait done our way. I held up one hand. Gentle. Calm. Actually, no. Since I paid for it, we're doing it my way. I looked at the photographer. I want a full family portrait. All 4 adults. All 4 children. Everyone included. The photographer looked relieved. Of course. That's what I'd recommend anyway. My mother's face was shifting through several colors now. Pale to flushed. Jessica, you don't just. This is our anniversary portrait. I tilted my head slightly. Paid for with my money. My credit card. My booking. I let that sit for a moment. Then I continued. But here's what I'm thinking. We do the full family portrait first. Everyone. Then we can do smaller groupings if you want. We have the extended time package, so there's no rush. My father found his voice. Jessica, where did you get $2,400 to spend on photographs? It was a reasonable question. Based on what they thought I earned, based on what they assumed about my financial situation, that amount would represent a significant portion of my discretionary income. I smiled at him. From my photography budget, I said. I allocated $3,000 for family documentation this year. This was well within range. My brother's voice was careful. You have a photography budget? I turned to him. I have several budgets. Photography, travel, charitable giving, professional development, property maintenance. I paused. The property maintenance budget is the largest. About $4,500 monthly. I watched the confusion spread across his face. Property maintenance for what? I adjusted my purse strap. For my properties. I own 7 rental units. 2 are single-family homes, 5 are condos. They require ongoing maintenance. The silence that followed lasted approximately 5 seconds. Maybe 6. Long enough that I heard someone's phone buzz in the photographer's bag. My mother tried to laugh. It came out wrong. Jessica, that's not funny. I wasn't smiling anymore. I'm not joking. I own 7 properties. Total value approximately $2,450,000. Total equity after mortgages approximately $740,000. They generate $11,300 in monthly rental income after all expenses. My father's hand had stopped mid-gesture. He'd been reaching for his phone. Now his hand just hung there in the air. That's not possible, he said. I opened my purse. Pulled out a folder. I'd prepared this, just in case. Knew this moment might come. Knew I might need proof. I handed the folder to my father. These are account statements from my property management LLC. Each property is listed with its current value, mortgage balance, and rental income. I've also included my most recent tax return. You'll see the depreciation schedules. All 7 properties are documented. He opened the folder with hands that weren't quite steady. My mother moved to look over his shoulder. I watched their faces. Saw the moment the information connected. The moment they realized the numbers were real. My brother spoke. His voice came out tight. When did you buy properties? I looked at him. First one was 2020. Pasadena. 2-bedroom condo. Paid $340,000. It's worth about $485,000 now. I paused. I've been acquiring properties every 9 to 12 months since then. Most recent purchase was February this year. A duplex in Alhambra. That one was $680,000. My mother's voice was barely above a whisper. How is this possible? You can't, your job, I helped her. My job pays $185,000 base salary. Plus I have vested equity worth about $90,000. I was recently offered a VP position at another company for $240,000 base. I'm negotiating the equity package now. I'll probably accept it. I glanced at Emma. She was watching all of this with wide eyes, but staying quiet. Good kid. I continued. I also have retirement accounts, investment accounts, and about $65,000 in liquid savings. My net worth, including property equity, liquid assets, and vested equity, is approximately $980,000. The number hung in the air. My father was still looking at the documents. Page after page. Property deeds. Account statements. Tax returns. All of it real. All of it documented. He looked up at me. You've been doing this for 4 years and never mentioned it? I shrugged. You never asked. You assumed I was struggling. I let you assume. My mother's face was cycling through emotions faster than I could track. Shock. Confusion. Something that might have been anger. But the family business, she said. We just gave it to your brother because we thought. She stopped. I finished for her. Because you thought he was the financially successful one. The responsible one. The one who knew what he was doing with money. I said it without heat. Just facts. He is successful. He's done very well. Junior partner at 34 is impressive. I meant it. Then I added, but my real estate portfolio is worth 3 times what the family business is worth. And my annual rental income is higher than the business's annual profit. My brother had gone very still. That stillness people get when their understanding of the world is reshaping itself. 3 times, he said quietly. I nodded. The family business is worth about $800,000, correct? My properties are worth $2,450,000. That's 3.06 times the value. My mother tried one more time. But you never said anything. You never told us. You let us think, I interrupted gently. You told me. Repeatedly. For years. That I wasn't as capable as my brother. That I was struggling. That I'd never achieve this level of success. That I wasn't cut out for it. I paused. Every time you said those things, I added another property to my list. Every dismissive comment was another motivation to prove you wrong. Not to you. To myself. The photographer had backed away slightly, giving us space. Her assistant was pretending to adjust equipment. Emma was still beside me, her hand now in mine again. My father closed the folder. Set it on a nearby table. Why now? He asked. Why tell us now? I looked at my daughter. At her blue dress. At her confused expression. Then I looked back at my father. Because you asked her to wait in the car so she wouldn't ruin the perfect family picture. Because you included my brother's children but not mine. Because even after everything, you still don't see me as an equal member of this family. My voice stayed level. Calm. I've spent 4 years building financial security. I've done it quietly, carefully, strategically. I've worked with financial advisors, tax attorneys, property managers. I've made myself into someone who is, by any objective measure, extremely successful. I gestured to the folder. Those aren't aspirations. Those are facts. Documented facts. My mother sat down heavily in one of the studio chairs. The expensive ones they kept for clients during portrait review sessions. She looked at me like she'd never seen me before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe she'd only ever seen the version of me she'd constructed. The struggling daughter. The one who needed help. The one who would never quite measure up. My brother found his voice. The business transfer, he said. Are you saying, do you want? I shook my head. I don't want the family business. You should have it. You'll run it well. You have the time and interest. I don't. I paused. But I want you all to understand something. I'm not struggling. I'm not barely getting by. I'm not the family charity case. I'm the most financially successful person in this room. The statement landed hard. I could see it in their faces. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's eyes were shining, though whether from tears or something else I couldn't tell. My brother looked at his wife, then back at me. Why didn't you tell us? He asked. Why let us think you were barely making it? I considered the question. In the beginning, I didn't tell you because you didn't ask. Then I didn't tell you because I realized you'd already decided what my story was. You'd cast me in a role, and nothing I said would change that. So I stopped trying to change it. I just kept building. The photographer cleared her throat softly. Should we proceed with the portrait session? We're on the clock. I looked at my mother. We're doing a full family portrait. All 4 children included. Emma is not waiting in the car. This is not negotiable. My mother opened her mouth, closed it, looked at my father. He was still staring at the folder on the table. After a long moment, he nodded. Fine, my mother said quietly. Fine. The photographer gestured to the backdrop. Wonderful. Let's get everyone positioned. We moved to the shooting area. The photographer started arranging us. Grandparents in the center seated. Adult children standing behind. All 4 grandchildren in front, arranged by height. Emma fit right in, third from the left. Her blue dress looked perfect against the cream backdrop. The photographer adjusted the lighting. Made small position changes. Can we get a smile from everyone? She asked. My parents smiled. Tight. Controlled. My brother and his wife smiled. More natural, but still strained. Emma smiled, genuine and sweet. My brother's kids smiled. I smiled. The photographer took the shot. Then another. And another. 12 shots total for the main portrait. Then we did smaller groupings. Just grandparents and grandchildren. Just the adult siblings. Just each family unit. When it was just Emma and me, the photographer said, beautiful. The 2 of you look so happy. We were. Despite everything. Or maybe because of everything. After the smaller portraits, my mother pulled me aside. We stood near the window, away from the others. I don't understand, she said. Her voice was small. Not the confident tone she usually carried. How did we not know? How did we miss this? I looked at her. Really looked at her. She seemed older suddenly. Tired. You didn't miss it, I said. You chose not to see it. There's a difference. She flinched. That's not fair. I shrugged. Fair or not, it's true. Every time I accomplished something, you minimized it. Every time I tried to share good news, you changed the subject. After a while, I stopped sharing. Started keeping my life separate. My mother's eyes were definitely wet now. I'm your mother. I should have known. I should have asked. I didn't disagree. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then she said, the business transfer. Your father and I, we can reconsider. We can split it, give you half. I held up my hand. I told you. I don't want it. My brother should have it. He'll do well with it. I paused. But I want you to understand something. I don't need your help. I don't need an inheritance to succeed. I've already succeeded. I did it without you. The words were harsh, but I said them gently. She nodded. Wiped her eyes. I see that now. We returned to the group. The session wrapped up. The photographer said prints would be ready in 3 weeks. She'd send a link to the online gallery for additional ordering. We all nodded. Gathered our things. My brother approached me as we were leaving. Can we talk? He asked. Maybe get coffee sometime this week? I looked at him. Saw genuine confusion there. Maybe some hurt. Sure, I said. I'll text you. We left the studio. Emma and I walked to my car. She was quiet until we were buckled in. Then she said, Grandma didn't want me in the picture. I started the engine. I know, baby. She thought about that. But we got in the picture anyway. I smiled. Yes, we did. She seemed satisfied with that. We drove home. I made her favorite dinner, pasta with butter and parmesan, the simple kind she loved. We watched a movie, had ice cream. She fell asleep on the couch during the second act. I carried her to bed, tucked her in, watched her sleep for a moment. Breathed. Oh, and there's one more thing. Something I didn't mention at the studio because the timing wasn't right, but that my mother would discover within 48 hours when her lawyer called with questions. The property management LLC I'd created wasn't just for holding my personal real estate. I'd also registered it as a licensed property management company in California. As of March 2024, I'd started taking on outside clients. Small operations at first. A few landlords with single properties who needed professional management. By May, I had 12 client properties under management. By July, I'd have 23. The company would generate $85,000 in revenue its first year. It operated in the exact same market as the family business. Same services. Same geography. Better systems. Lower fees. More responsive service. I'd already signed 2 clients who had previously worked with my father's company. They'd switched to mine because I offered better terms and more professional operations. Within 18 months, my property management company would have 56 client properties and $340,000 in annual revenue. It would be worth more than the family business. But I didn't tell them that part yet. That revelation could wait. We settled into a new pattern after the portrait session. My parents called less frequently. When they did call, they asked questions. Real questions. About my work, my properties, my plans. The questions were careful, tentative, like they were learning to talk to a stranger. Maybe they were. My brother and I had coffee 3 times over the following month. The conversations were awkward at first. He asked how I'd learned about real estate investing. I told him about Patricia Chin, about the education I'd pursued, about the systematic approach I'd taken. He listened. Really listened. By the 3rd coffee, he asked if I'd be willing to look at his own investment portfolio, give him some advice. I said yes. We started meeting monthly. Professional consultations. I didn't charge him, but I probably should have. My mother sent a long email in June. Apologized for years of dismissiveness. Said she was proud of what I'd built. Said she wished she'd seen it sooner. I read the email 3 times. Replied with a simple thank you. Didn't elaborate. Didn't forgive or not forgive. Just acknowledged. Emma and I attended the family 4th of July gathering. My parents were different around her. Attentive. Inclusive. My mother asked her about school, about her interests, about her friends. Real questions, not performative ones. It was strange watching them try. But they were trying. The family portrait arrived in late May. Professional, beautiful. All of us together. Emma front and center in her blue dress. My mother had it framed and hung in the living room. Prominent placement. You couldn't miss it when you walked in. For 3 months, everything was quiet. Stable. We'd reached a new equilibrium. Not perfect, but functional. My business grew. My properties appreciated. Emma thrived. I accepted the VP position. Started in August. The work was demanding but good. I was building something again. Different from the properties, but equally satisfying. Then last Tuesday, my mother called. Her voice was tight. Controlled. Jessica, we need to talk. In person. Can you come to the house? I asked what it was about. She hesitated. It's about your brother. And the business. There's been a development. I drove over that evening. Emma stayed with a friend. When I arrived, both my parents were waiting in the living room. They looked serious. Worried. My mother gestured to the chair. I sat. My father spoke first. Your brother has been approached by a buyer for the family business. A real estate investment firm. They're offering $1,100,000. Significantly more than we thought it was worth. I nodded. Waited. My mother continued. He's considering selling. But there's a complication. The buyer is very interested in the client list. They specifically mentioned that several of our longtime clients have recently switched to a new management company. They want to understand the competitive landscape before finalizing the offer. I kept my face neutral. Which company? My father's voice was careful. They didn't name it specifically, but they described it. A newer operation. Very professional. Better systems. More competitive pricing. He paused. It sounds like your company, Jessica. I took a breath. It is my company. My mother's face did something complicated. You're competing with a family business? I shook my head. I'm competing in the same market. There's a difference. I'm not targeting your clients specifically. I'm running a business. When clients approach me because they're unhappy with their current service, I take them on. That's how business works. My father leaned forward. How many of our clients have you taken? I'd known this question would come eventually. 6. Out of your 43 total clients. All 6 approached me. I didn't solicit them. My mother's voice rose slightly. But you knew they were our clients. You could have referred them back to us. I met her eyes. Would you have referred them to a competitor if they came to you unhappy with their current service? She didn't answer. My father spoke instead. This affects your brother's ability to sell. If the buyer thinks there's significant competitive pressure, they might lower the offer. Or walk away entirely. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street I grew up on. Let me be very clear about something, I said, not turning around. I built my company from nothing. I didn't use family connections. I didn't leverage the family name. I started with my own properties and grew by providing excellent service. When clients from your business came to me unhappy, I took them on because that's what you do when you're running a legitimate business. I won't apologize for that. I turned back to face them. If my brother wants to sell, he should sell. If the buyer lowers the offer because of competitive pressure, that's the market working the way markets work. Welcome to business. My mother looked like she might cry. But we're family. Doesn't that mean something? I softened slightly. It does mean something. It means I didn't actively pursue your clients. It means I gave my brother 3 months of free consulting on his investment portfolio. It means I show up to family dinners and try to make this work despite years of being dismissed and underestimated. I paused. But it doesn't mean I handicap my own business to protect yours. That's not how this works. The room was silent. Then my father said quietly, the buyer wants to meet with all significant competitors before finalizing the offer. They've requested a meeting with you. I looked at him. When? He glanced at my mother. Friday, 2 p.m. At their offices downtown. I calculated quickly. Friday was 3 days away. I had a property inspection that morning, but I could move it. I'll be there, I said. My mother stood. Jessica, please. Can't we figure this out as a family? There has to be a way to. I held up my hand. I'll meet with the buyer. I'll answer their questions honestly. Beyond that, this is business. My business. I'm not sabotaging anything, but I'm also not hiding what I've built. I looked at both of them. You wanted me to be successful. I'm successful. This is what that looks like. I left. Drove home. Sat in my car for a long time before going inside. Opened my safe. Pulled out the documentation I'd kept from every client acquisition. Every conversation. Every contract. All of it clean. Ethical. Professional. No solicitation. No poaching. Just good business. I had receipts. Timestamps. Email trails. If this turned into a legal question, I was covered. But more than that, I had something else. Something I discovered 2 months ago when reviewing my father's business structure. A detail in the original LLC operating agreement. A clause about ownership transfer. A technicality that, if exercised correctly, would mean the business couldn't be sold without consent from all family members with ownership interest. And according to the original documents my father had filed in 1985, there was a provision for future inheritance that named both his children as contingent owners upon certain triggering events. That provision had never been updated, never removed. It was still active. I'd had my lawyer review it. She'd confirmed. The provision was legally binding. If I wanted to, I could block the sale entirely. My parents didn't know I'd found this. My brother didn't know. The buyer certainly didn't know. I had 48 hours to decide what to do with that information. I locked the documents back in the safe. Made myself tea. Emma came home. We played a board game. She won. We laughed. Life continued. But Friday was coming. And I'd been waiting for this.